Hey, thanks for joining us on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button just below because it's only here that you're going to really hear me sound off on my opinion. And I guess that's why you want to hear, because you've joined us here. So here I'm going to sound off about neighbors. Do you know, I wouldn't even be here if people hadn't been kind to me, and extraordinary neighbors, from being born in a Salvation Army shelter to being picked up and fostered and adopted. And you should see the producer team that takes care of me at Context, at Crossroads. It takes a lot of people to make the world care for each other. So let's all do our part. And I was really touched by our coverage of the Gosford fire. It's so traumatic to lose your home. I'm remembering an interview I did with a woman who was of high net worth, leading one of the major institutions in Toronto, lost her home, and it really threw her. Like, she had to take breaks from work, you name it, the whole thing. It really threw her. And here you have 700 families in Gosford. It should be headline news in every major newscast. Are they settling? Are we calming their mental health? Are the resources coming in? They don't need any more teddy bears and blankets. They need cash donations. So when you go to the Toronto District School Board, you can support specific families that are being monitored carefully, that they get what they need as they try and stabilize. And thank God there are local churches in that Jane and Finch area of Toronto. Here's just one pastor, Olu Jegedi, and what the church is doing.
You hosted a community outreach dinner for the victims of the North York fire last night. Tell us a little bit about serving them and how that went.
Yeah, we had probably about 4 or 5 community agencies that partnered with the church. Lots of volunteers, even some of the youth from the Boys and Girls Club came, as well as volunteers from our church.
And so what are some of the biggest spiritual needs of some of these people and the challenges that they're facing in a crisis like this?
They need to know that they haven't been forgotten. I think that oftentimes in communities such as ours, where maybe there's many low-income residents or new immigrants, sometimes there's a sense of abandonment and isolation. And so I think it's so important that the church and God's people are present, even if it's just to be a neighbor, and not always to give stuff, but to let them know that we're here, to greet them with smiles, and that really God does love them, and we are His people incarnate in the community.
What stands out for you in terms of helping your neighbors right now?
I think that we all don't know what's going to happen on Friday, because apparently the victims only have two weeks with Red Cross where they're providing the shelter. And so we're just wondering, how is the community, or how is the management, or how are these people going to be taken care of?
So what are some of the things that we can do to help the victims right now?
So whether you give through the GoFundMe that's been set up by the counselor and the TDSB, or whether you give directly to our church and on our website, ccctoronto.com, through Canada Helps, and you can mark fire victims, we can find ways to get the money directly to help these families offset some of the costs that they're facing. Some of them don't have renter's insurance, and so that's really a difficult situation in terms of sort of paying immediate pressing bills. And over the holidays, we're hoping to do Christmas parties for some of the children affected as well, and whether with toys and volunteer, and also food donations for the parties. But we will put that information out the best we can when that time comes.
That's Pastor Olu. Lots of great pastors. Thank God for good neighbors like them, and I hope we helped inspire you. Come on, be a good neighbor. Go to the Context website. Here's how you can help those displaced in the Gosford fire. And remember, keep subscribing, watching us here on YouTube. We'll let you know when I have something important, like being a good neighbor, to sound off on, because you'll hear it straight from the heart, only here at YouTube.